So this past Smackdown, they sort of teased a potential breakup between the Street Profits backstage with Uncle Howdy or Bo Dallas. He paid Mellow Don't Miz a visit, he paid the Street Profits a visit, and he was all up in their ears, carrying crossing it, just fully trying to manipulate the situation. Talking about family and brothers and stuff and who's going to be there and who's not. So I say this. I hope they're going to pull the trigger and actually go through with it. Because at this point, there's no better time to do this than now. The Street Profits waited years to get the last tag team championship run that they just had. And all for what? For it to end up being as creatively disgraceful as it was. To no fault of their own, of course, but at this point, it's time to move on and try something new, in my opinion. People have been asking for this breakup for years, and every time I've seen it suggested, it always seems to come from the perspective of, fuck Angelo Dawkins, push Montez forward, he's a star. Now, of course, they never say the first part out loud, but clearly a lot of people have been conditioned into thinking that you could only ever push one guy off of a breakup angle when it comes to a tag team split. Because we're not going to sit here and act like every tag team ever always has one trash member, and the first guy's always better than the second guy. And to such degree that the second guy may as well get fired. But that seems to be the mindset that everybody wants to run with. And I'll say this for the last time. The most recent and absolute egregious example of this is people convincing themselves off of the Uso split that Jey Uso was so much better than Jimmy Uso, and the mismatch levels of booking that took place between the two, by comparison, was justified. So here's what I'll say about Angelo Dawkins. First of all, underrated. And I'll even go as far as to say that personally, I think he has the more exciting moveset in my opinion. In fact, the only nitpick criticism I've ever had on the Street Profits was pretty much directed at Montez Ford in the first place. I don't know if anyone else has ever noticed this, but there definitely was a time, if not sometimes still, where I felt like he didn't have enough of his own identity in the ring. He was always doing other people's things, like gimmicks in the ring. I've seen him do rock bottom. I've seen him go for people's elbow. I've seen him do angle slam, which was not even that long ago. I've seen him do suck it taunt. I seen him shake the ropes like Batista, or technically Ultimate Warrior, but I'm pretty sure he was going for Batista. His finisher is a frog splash, which is already like he didn't, all those things chipped away and started to low-key add up against him, in my opinion, in my own head. Because clearly he's got the charisma and athletic ability, which is why I think it bothered me so much that he's just out here recurringly doing all these other people's gimmicks. And I might have missed some. But even after all that, why is the conversation still on Montez Ford as the standout of the group? It's because he just attracts more on an immediate level. He's good at what he does, but so is Dawkins. They got different styles, but the same way how if you're not fully invested, if I show you Tupac and Biggie, and you're not from the East or West, then most people are just going to pick Tupac because he looks cooler. But meanwhile, Dawkins over here being slept on with the better finisher and more impactful moves in general, in my opinion. And he can still dive over the top ropes if you care about that kind of thing. Like, it's not like he's not athletic. And he's even good on the mic. I guess since we don't get to hear it often, like, people just don't know. But Street Profits had a great promo not too long ago, like just before they won the tag team titles, I believe it was, in which Dawkins had a great part in that. But all that being said, here's how Dawkins can survive the split. So first of all, he's got to be the one that turns heel, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But here's the twist. Contrary to typical WWE booking historically, Dawkins will be more successful out the gate, rather than Montez Ford. So we're not going to run this jealousy angle shit where Dawkins is mad that Montez is more popular and then Dawkins goes on to become some loser heel because the good guy always wins. Nah, we ain't running that shit today. In fact, Dawkins doesn't even necessarily have to fight Montez immediately off rip. What I would do is you turn Dawkins into a complete menace of a troll heel and have him just bully the roster. And some of you won't know what I'm about to talk about right here, but I got this idea based on the same promo that I'm talking about with Dawkins and Montez. At one point, Dawkins made this face where he was just, he had this slimy ass grin on his face like he was just basking in his own greatness. And it reminded me of Trey Rags. If you put this guy on a monster heel run where he's just bullying jobbers to almost comedic levels and he thinks he's so great for doing it, that would be hilarious. You could even lean way more into his basketball gimmick. Force his opponent to play his game, turn the ring into his court, and that little spinning dunk move he does in the corner, have like a gimmick basketball, have a gimmick net in the corner so he could dunk on people literally. And then have your own personal referee who is biased in your favor so that you can further slime the opponent and win matches that way too. Like, there's so many fun things you could do with this. And for the people that are going to say, oh, you're not supposed to like the heel. He's a bad heel. No. Fuck out of here with that. We've seen what not supposed to like the heel looks like with Cena's heel turn, okay? Don't give me that. We're making good entertainment is what we're doing. They completely went out the way to sabotage the product when it came to Cena's run. No music change, no gear change, no exciting changes anywhere, nothing. And now what are people saying about it? This is why you got to stop trying to micromanage who people like and just aim for putting on good entertainment baseline. If the crowd's going to be split, let it be split. Because by the same logic, I could say that Cena was a bad babyface for most of his career when he was getting booed. But back on the profits. You have Dawkins go his own way and go on the run of his career, paying Montez no mind. Meanwhile, on the other side, Montez is fighting all this adversity, building his way up the card, until he eventually gets a title shot, whether it's, let's say, US Championship. And then, right when Montez is about to win the championship, that's when, for the first time, Dawkins appears and screws him over out of the championship, just to be a troll, and he finds it hilarious. And there's even a couple ways to do this, because I like the idea of Dawkins being a champion himself when this happens, already. So they were both on the rise, separately, until they met again. But of course, Dawkins beat him to gold. So this would probably mean that they'd have to be on different brands. So let's say Dawkins goes to Raw, wins the IC championship, and then just when Montez is about to win the US championship, Dawkins appears on Smackdown to screw him over, which might even be funnier than being on the same brand already. And then this could be the beginning of the Street Profits head-to-head feud. You have Montez go over to Adam Pearce or whatever, request to be traded, talk it through with Nick Aldis or whatever, make that trade, just so that Montez can get his revenge and go after Dawkins. So then, of course, you set up the pay-per-view, promos, and blah, 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 blah. Pay-per-view rolls around, title on the line, Angelo Dawkins versus Montez Ford. Bell rings and it's a back-and-forth even match. Skill versus skill in the ring. And then we put the shoe on the other foot, and we have an accidental ref bump. But instead of the babyface immediately going for their finisher into the heartbreaking unanswered 7 count, it's Dawkins that goes for his finisher and is in that situation. So of course Dawkins doesn't get the count. He lets go, he gets up, he's frustrated. And now he has the built-in bitch-ass excuse of he had it won in case he loses. So for the next minute or two, he's trying to wake up the ref until eventually Montez wakes back up on some second wind psycho surge of energy that he does. Lands a comeback sequence on Dawkins, then goes up to the top rope for the From the Heavens. And a new ref is running down to the ring, just fully hauling ass. So Montez waits a second. Then he jumps off and goes for it, hits the From the Heavens. Ref just gets in the ring, and he calls a foul. And that's when he notices Angelo Dawkins' personal ref, and top rope moves are technically illegal, so he enforces it. He sends Montez to his corner. He helps Dawkins to his feet. He motions for the match to continue. And then noticing that Dawkins is still exhausted, Montez decides to capitalize, pick up where he left off. So he charges straight at Dawkins, but then gets cut off with a pounce, sending him flying halfway across the ring. Angelo Dawkins starts climbing the turnbuckle, and the ref looks away like he doesn't see it. And then Dawkins hits a From the Heavens, leading to the fastest 3 count you've ever seen. Here is your winner, and still Intercontinental Champion, Angelo the Troll Dawkins. Shit-eating grin into the hard cam, and then roll my credits. At least that's how I would do it. I'd have him win the first time, and then on the run back, that's when Montez gets his. But that's just me, being a critic and not a fan. So I'll just fuck off now and let your boy do it worse.